Sunday morning, 11:47. Grace Miller walked out of Riverside Baptist Church, waving goodbye. By noon, her car was found abandoned on County Road 9, engine still warm. No struggle, no ransom, no body. Just a single voicemail left at 9:32 that night from a number that didn't exist. And when investigators played it back, they heard her voice, terrified, whispering three words: "He knows everything." Millbrook, Indiana. Population 4,200. One main street, 3 traffic lights, and a single church that everyone attends. Riverside Baptist has stood at the center of this town for over 60 years. The white wooden steeple rises above cornfields that stretch to the horizon. On Sunday mornings, the parking lot fills before 9. Families in their best clothes, children clutching Bibles. Elderly couples holding hands as they walk through the double doors. And for the last 8 years, Grace Miller has been the heart of it all. Every Sunday, she leads the choir. Every Wednesday, she organizes Bible study in the parish hall. Every holiday, she bakes pies for the community potluck. To the people of Millbrook, Grace wasn't just the pastor's wife. She was the glue that held the congregation together, a warm smile, a kind word, a shoulder to cry on. But on April 14th, 2024, that all changed. It was a Sunday like any other. The sun rose over cornfields still wet with morning dew. Grace arrived at church at 9:15, just like always. She wore a light blue dress, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She greeted families at the entrance, hugged the elderly, handed out programs to visitors. At 10 o'clock, the service began. Pastor Daniel Miller stood at the pulpit, delivering a sermon about faith in uncertain times. Grace sat in the front row, nodding, smiling, her hands folded in her lap. At 11:30, she conducted the closing hymn. Her voice, strong and steady, echoed through the wooden rafter. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. The congregation joined in, 200 voices lifting together, and then the final prayer. People began to file out, shaking hands, chatting in the parking lot. Grace stayed behind for a few minutes, tidying up the choir loft, stacking hymnals, straightening chairs. Security footage shows her leaving through the side door at 11:47. She's smiling, waving at someone off camera. She walks to her silver Honda Accord, parked under the oak tree near the fellowship hall. She gets in, adjusts the rearview mirror, pulls out of the lot, and then she's gone. Grace Elizabeth Turner was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on a cold February morning in 1990. Her parents ran a small hardware store on the edge of town. She was the middle child of 3, quiet, studious, a straight-A student who spent weekends volunteering at the local soup kitchen. At 19, she met Daniel Miller at a Christian youth conference in Indianapolis. He was 23, fresh out of seminary, passionate about ministry and service. They married a year later in a small ceremony at his parents' church in Bloomington. For the first few years, they traveled together, working with missionary groups in rural Appalachia, helping rebuild homes after floods, organizing food drives, teaching Sunday school in towns that barely had running water. Then, in 2016, Daniel was offered a position at Riverside Baptist in Millbrook. It was a homecoming of sorts. His grandfather had been a deacon there decades earlier. Grace embraced the role of pastor's wife with quiet determination. She started the children's choir, organized prayer groups for young mothers, visited the sick and elderly. She became a fixture in the community, known not just for her kindness, but for her steadiness. People trusted her, confided in her, but those close to Grace knew she carried a weight, a sadness that sometimes flickered behind her eye. Her best friend, Rebecca Thompson, later told investigators that Grace had seemed different in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, distant, preoccupied. One night in late March, over coffee in Rebecca's kitchen, Grace had said something strange. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's." Rebecca didn't press. She assumed it was stress, the demands of ministry, the constant scrutiny of a small town. But looking back, she wondered if Grace had been trying to say more. On the day Grace disappeared, Pastor Daniel was the first to raise the alarm. At 12:07, he called 911. His voice was steady but strained. "My wife didn't come home from church. Her car isn't here. This isn't like her." The dispatcher asked routine questions. Had they argued? Was she upset? Daniel said no. Everything had been normal. The service went well. Grace seemed happy. But by 2 p.m., when Grace still hadn't answered her phone, Daniel called again. This time his voice cracked. "Something's wrong. I know my wife. She wouldn't just leave." At 2:14 p.m., a farmer named Earl Hutchins was driving his tractor along County Road 9, a narrow 2-lane strip of asphalt that cuts through cornfields about 4 miles east of Millbrook. He noticed a car pulled off on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. He slowed down. The car was a silver Honda Accord. The engine was still warm. The driver's door was unlocked. The keys were in the ignition. Grace's purse sat on the passenger seat. Wallet, phone, everything inside. Earl called the sheriff. Within 20 minutes, County Road 9 was swarming with police. Yellow tape cordoned off the scene. Officers combed the ditches. Cadaver dogs were brought in. No blood, no signs of struggle, no footprints leading into the fields. It was as if Grace had simply stepped out of the car and vanished into thin air. Detective Laura Chen arrived from the State Police Barracks at 3 p.m. A veteran investigator with 15 years of experience in missing persons cases. Chen had seen it all. Runaways, abductions, domestic violence. But this case felt different. Everything about it was when someone disappears, there's usually something, a clue, a pattern. But here, nothing made sense. Chen's first move was to interview Pastor Daniel Miller. He met her at the police station at 4:30. He was calm, almost unnaturally so. He answered every question without hesitation. No, they hadn't argued. No, Grace didn't have enemies. No, there were no financial problems. Yes, she had seemed a little stressed lately, but nothing unusual. Chen asked if Grace had ever talked about leaving. Daniel's jaw tightened. Grace would never leave, not without telling me, not without a reason. But as Chen dug deeper, cracks began to appear. A church treasurer named Martin Hollis mentioned, almost offhandedly, that some of the congregation's donation records didn't quite add up. Nothing major, just inconsistencies, around $8,000 over the past 6 months. Chen made a note. Then there was the stranger. Multiple witnesses mentioned seeing an unfamiliar man at the Sunday service that morning, middle-aged, dark jacket, sitting alone in the back row. He left before the service ended. No one knew his name. Security footage showed him leaving the church at 11:20, 17 minutes before Grace. By evening, the town was flooded with rumors. Some said Grace had run off with another man. Others whispered about marital problems. A few even suggested that Pastor Daniel himself might be involved. The local news picked up the story. By Monday morning, Grace's face was on every screen in Indiana. The call lasted 42 seconds. The audio was crackling, distorted by poor reception, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Grace. "Hello? Hello, please. I don't have much time. I need help. I can't say where. Please just..." He knows. He knows everything. "I can't..." Wait, and then the line went dead. Investigators tried to trace the call. The phone had pinged off a cell tower near the town of Greencastle, about 30 miles southwest of Millbrook. But by the time officers arrived in the area, the phone was off, untraceable. The recording was analyzed by the FBI's audio forensics unit. They confirmed it was Grace's voice. No signs of AI manipulation. No indication of duress in her tone, at least not the kind that suggested a gun to her head. But there was fear. Real, palpable fear. Detective Chen played the recording for Pastor Daniel. He listened in silence, his face pale. When it ended, he looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks. "That's her. That's Grace. She's alive." But Chen wasn't so sure. The phrase, "he knows everything," echoed in her mind. Who was he? What did Grace mean? Chen returned to the church. She interviewed every member of the congregation one by one. She asked about Grace's routines, her relationships, her state of mind. Most people had nothing but glowing things to say, but a few were more guarded. One woman, a longtime member named Helen Carver, mentioned that Grace had seemed troubled in recent weeks. She asked me once if I'd ever felt trapped. Not physically, but spiritually, like you were living a life that wasn't yours. Helen didn't know what grace meant. She thought maybe it was burnout. Then Chen spoke with Martin Hollis, the church treasurer. He was nervous, fidgeting with his glasses. Chen pressed him about the missing donation. Martin finally admitted that he'd noticed discrepancies but hadn't reported them because he didn't want to cause trouble. Grace handled a lot of the financial paperwork, he said. I didn't want to accuse her of anything, but some of the numbers didn't add up. Chen's next lead was the mysterious man from the Sunday service. Using the security footage, she worked with a sketch artist to create a composite. The image was circulated to local and state police. Within hours, they had a name: David Brennan, a private investigator from Fort Wayne. But when Chen tracked him down, Brennan refused to talk. He cited client confidentiality. Chen obtained a warrant. Brennan's phone records showed he'd been in contact with Grace for 3 weeks leading up to her disappearance. Multiple calls, text messages, all encrypted. When confronted, Brennan finally spoke. Grace hired me. She wanted me to look into her husband. She thought he was hiding something. I told her I'd need proof. She said she'd get it, and then she vanished. Detective Chen obtained a warrant to search the Miller home. What she found changed everything. In Daniel's home office, buried in a locked drawer, were bank statements from an account Grace didn't know existed. Over the past 2 years, Daniel had been transferring money, small amounts at first, then larger sums, into this account. A total of $73,000. The source? Church donations. Daniel had been skimming from the collection plates, slowly, methodically. He'd set up the account under a false name, routing the money through a shell company. It wasn't embezzlement in the traditional sense. He wasn't buying luxury cars or vacations. The money just sat there, untouched. When confronted, Daniel broke down. He admitted everything. I was scared, he said. The church was struggling. Attendance was down. I thought, if things got bad, we'd need a safety net. I was going to pay it back, I swear. Chen didn't believe him. Did Grace know? She asked. Daniel hesitated. Then quietly, she found out. 3 weeks before she disappeared. She was furious. She said if I didn't confess to the congregation, she would. But there was more. Chen discovered that Grace had opened her own secret account. It was small, just $5,000, but it had been funded incrementally over the past year. Deposits from her part-time job at the local, withdrawals for cash, always in small amounts. It looked like someone building an escape. Chen also found a storage unit rented in Grace's name, 20 miles outside. Inside, a suitcase, clothes, a burner phone, a fake ID, and a notebook. The notebook was filled with entries, plans, fears, hopes. Grace had been documenting her life, her doubts, her growing realization that she no longer recognized the woman in the mirror. One entry, dated March 28th, read, I don't know who I am anymore. I've spent so long being what everyone needs me to be. Daniel's wife, the pastor's wife, the choir director, the good Christian woman. But what about me? What about what I want? Another entry, dated April 10th, just 4 days before her disappearance, read, I hired David. He's looking into Daniel. I need to know the truth, but I'm scared. If I'm right, everything falls apart. The church, our marriage, my whole life. Maybe it's better to just disappear? Chen showed the notebook to Daniel. He read it in silence, tears falling onto the pages. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know she felt this way. But the notebook raised a new question. If Grace had been planning to leave, why the 911 call? Why the fear in her voice? Chen theorized that Grace had intended to vanish quietly, start a new life. But something had gone wrong. Someone had found out. Or maybe she'd changed. The investigation took another turn when a gas station attendant in Greencastle came forward. He'd seen a woman matching Grace's description on the night of April 14th, around 10 p.m. She'd been alone, buying water and a prepaid phone card. She'd looked nervous, kept glancing over her shoulder. She'd paid in cash and left quickly. Chen pulled the gas station's security footage. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. It was Grace, alive, alone, and clearly on the run. For 3 more days, the trail went cold. No more 911 calls, no more sightings. Detective Chen worked around the clock, following every lead. Then, on April 19th, 5 days after Grace disappeared, Chen received a call from a motel manager in Terre Haute, Indiana. A woman matching Grace's description had checked in 3 days earlier, paying cash for a week. Chen arrived within the hour. Room 214. She knocked. No answer. She used the manager's key. The room was empty. But Grace had left something behind. On the bedside table, a handwritten letter addressed to Daniel. Chen opened it. The letter was 4 pages long, written in Grace's careful cursive. It read, in part, "Daniel, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I don't love you, but because I've lost myself. For 8 years, I've tried to be the woman you needed, the woman the congregation needed, but somewhere along the way, I disappeared. I became a role, a function, not a person. When I found out about the money, it wasn't anger I felt, it was relief, because it meant I wasn't the only one pretending. We've been living a lie, Daniel, a beautiful, well-meaning lie. But I can't do it anymore. I need to find out who I am without you, without the weight of everyone's expectations. I'm not asking you to understand, I'm just asking to let me go." Boitum. Chen returned to Millbrook. She gave the letter to Daniel. He read it alone, in the same room where he'd first reported Grace missing. When he finished, he didn't cry. He just sat there, staring at the pages. Later, he released a statement. He asked the community to respect Grace's privacy. He announced he would step down as pastor. He would repay every cent he'd taken. And he would spend the rest of his life trying to understand the woman he thought he knew. Grace Miller was never found, not because she couldn't be, but because she chose not to be. Detective Chen closed the case as a voluntary disappearance. No foul play, no crime. Just a woman who decided one Sunday morning that she needed to become someone new. In the months that followed, there were reported sightings. A woman who looked like Grace, working at a bookstore in Portland. Another in a diner in Montana. Chen never pursued them. If she wants to be found, Chen said, she'll reach out. Until then, she deserves the chance to start over. Millbrook slowly moved. The church found a new pastor. Riverside Baptist continued its Sunday services, but the story of Grace Miller lingered. A reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away. Grace Miller's story reminds us that sometimes the person we're searching for is ourselves. If this story moved you, if it made you think, please take a moment to like this video, follow our channel for more real stories that matter, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because every story we tell is a life we honor. Thank you for watching.